Lesson 1-6, Relations. So there's 3 different ways that we can represent relations. The first being the table, and this is where we just set up our columns and our rows, and you have your x and your y values, and you just place them beside each other on a table. Then we have a graph, and this is where you're actually graphing your coordinate points on your x or your y axis. And then the last way is mapping, and this is where you list out the x and y coordinates in number form. So if we had 2, -5, -1, and then if you have your y values, 5, 3, and -2, mapping is just using an arrow to represent the direction in the numbers that are together. So you're just mapping the numbers that go with the others. Pause the video to express these set of ordered pairs as a table, a graph, and mapping. So first, to put these ordered pairs in a table, we just create our columns. We have our x and our y, and you write your x values. So those are 2, -2, 5, and -1. And then our y values are 5, 3, -2, and another -2. So now if we want to draw our graph, we have our x and our y axis. I'm going to make some of my counting points here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now if we're trying to place these points, if we look, the first set of ordered pairs that we have is 2, 5. So I go over 2 and up 5 is my first point. -2 and 3, so I go -2, which is in the left direction, and then I go up 3. And then 5, -2, so 5 is a positive, so we go over 5, down 2 in the negative direction, and then the last one is -1, which is left, and then -2. Now we create a mapping, and the mapping looks very similar to the table because you pretty much just copy that information over and then you connect them. So I have 2, -2, 5, -1. So the 2 and the 5 are connected to each other. The -2 and the 3 are connected. And now you can see that for 5 and -1, the y-axis is -2. So we don't have to write that one twice here. We can just write it once and make 2 arrows going to the -2. When talking about relations, we also need to identify independent and dependent variables. These are terms that you will also hear in science class when you're doing labs, independent and dependent variables. An independent variable is the value of the variables that determines the output. It's what makes the output what number that it is. The dependent variable is a value that is dependent on the independent variable. So this number is dependent upon this number because whatever you do to the independent variable gives you the dependent variable. Pause the video to identify what is the independent and dependent variable of each example. The dance committee is selling tickets to the fall ball. The more tickets they sell increases the amount of money they can spend for decorations. The number of tickets sold is the independent variable. So the tickets sold is the independent variable because it is unaffected by the money spent on decorations. How much they spend on decorations does not affect the number of tickets sold. The money spent on decorations is the independent variable because this depends on the number of tickets sold. So for decorations, this is dependent. Because it says the more money they sell increases the amount of money. So the more tickets that they sell, the more decorations they can have for the party. The air pressure inside a tire increases with temperature. So the independent variable is the temperature, and the dependent variable is the pressure. The pressure depends on the temperature. When looking at relations, we also need to discuss how to analyze graphs. When a graph is rising or falling at a constant rate, the graph is in a straight line because it is constant. Graphs that have changes in slope, just like the one here below, are showing us that something is changing over time. So for this example, this is what a graph may look like for driving to school. You have distance over time, so how far you drive over how long it takes you. For this example, this graph shows the rate that the car is traveling is relatively fast. It is increasing at a very high rate. But every time you see a change, so right here, or right here, or right here, or right here, this is telling us that there's a change in speed. They could be stopping, they could be slowing down, it could be a red light, a stop sign, they could be stopping to pick someone up. But these are changes because they stop and then they continue going again, so they have to pick up that speed. Pause the video to complete the lesson review. Make sure you submit this lesson review for verification of the lesson.